come to me with your problems only. I want to know that you're thinking about solutions. When you're in solutions mode, you're a very different person. It's a different energy. You look at the world in a very different manner. And even if you're not finding the solutions, you're looking, and it's going to be bound to come. The solution will. So it's almost like a completely different chemical almost makeup of you. At all level, you're a different person. You're going to be chemically different because different chemicals in your body and your brain get engaged. You're going to be spiritually different, and you're going to be, everything about you is different. From that space comes some answer.
Welcome everyone to the Liberty Ventures podcast. My name is Alexander McCobin, founder of Liberty Ventures and general partner. Our purpose is to build an ecosystem of purpose-driven investors and entrepreneurs committed to advancing a free and prosperous society. And I am just so excited to be interviewing and having a conversation with Magatte, a longtime friend, incredible businesswoman. And to provide some context for her, if you don't know her, she's a serial entrepreneur, inspirational speaker, visionary business leader with a passion for creating positive change in Africa. She is the founder and CEO of Skin is Skin, the lip balm with a mission, and is dedicated to reducing racial discrimination while creating jobs and prosperity in her home country of Senegal. Throughout her career, she has created successful high-end retail brands inspired by diverse African traditions. She is a Forbes 20 Youngest Power Women in Africa, a Young Global Leader by the World Economic Forum, a TED Global Africa Fellow, and a Leading Woman in Wellness Award winner by the Global Wellness Summit. She serves on a number of different organizations' boards, including the advisory board of the Whole Planet Foundation and Whole Foods Market. And Magatte, you just are one of the most inspiring and amazing people I know, so thank you so much for talking with us today.
Well, thank you. You're being too kind, but thank you. Thanks for having me.
I gave a brief overview of your background, but I want to dive into your story straight from your own mouth to begin with, to provide context for everyone listening. So can you just walk us through where you come from and what's led to who you are and what you're doing today?
Yeah. So basically, I tell people about my story, but from the standpoint of what is it that I have come to understand through life. So basically, I was born in Senegal, west coast of Africa. My parents, like many African parents before them, and many still are doing, left me behind with my grandmother to stay in my village while they emigrated. So they tried their luck at emigration. Basically, they went to look for a better life. In this case, to Europe. Unfortunately, for many people who try this journey, it does not end well. Just on a regular basis, just this week, for example, we've had 3 instances. Right now, as I'm speaking to you, 300 people are missing somewhere between Senegal and Europe. People who packed themselves into boats trying to make it to the old continent in search of a job. So my parents were lucky that they did not have to immigrate under such dangerous circumstances, but they emigrated for the same reasons as these people. These are economic migrants, people leaving for a better life. And really that defined the rest of my life, even to me talking to you today. So after a few years of trying that, and when they realized this is going to work, we now have a stable journey here. They got all their paperwork, everything is fine. Now they know they're going to stay. Then they called for me to join them. And when that happened, I think that something happened at that moment that became the defining moment of my life in a way. So here's this little girl, 7-something years old, leaving her village, her country, her continent for the first time. Everything you knew. Everything I knew, everybody I knew. Even my own parents, I didn't know them so well because they left when I was 2. So really, I didn't really know them. So here I am, arriving in Germany in the middle of a winter, even that, cold weather. What's that? I was like, what is this thing? So arrived there, but I remember very viscerally this question of how come they have this and we don't? And the this was just simply, how come back home, for me to take my shower, it takes 45 minutes between my grandma having to get the charcoal stove going, like when you go camping, think about that little stove, charcoal, get that going, put a pot of water on it, then it boils, you put that in a bigger bucket, put some colder water, then drag it to the shower, and then there at last, with a smaller little cup, finally at last I can proceed to have my shower. We're here in Germany, my mom is like, Magatte, time for a shower. I'm like, I'm not getting butt naked in this cold weather, where's the bucket of water? She's like, come on you silly, just jump. That's not how it is here. So I jump in the shower, and then I turn the knobs around, and I think the water's coming at the temperature that I want, and it's like instant almost. I'm like, really? Seriously? And the power never goes out. Back home, the power, everybody has candles everywhere. Oftentimes, you're playing with your cousins or whatever, or we're having dinner or something, all of a sudden, crack, black pitch black. Power is out. We don't know if it's going to be for 5 minutes, or we don't know if it's going to be for 12 hours. We don't know if it's going to be for 2 days. We don't know. So we're like scrambling in the dark to get the candles going, just stuff like that. So I was like, how come they have this and we don't? And the paved roads. Like, basically, it was just like, life seems so easy here. Compared to there, and I was like, how come? And then that question really never left me, and it became, how come some countries like mine are poor and others rich? And eventually, long story short, some people along the lines, I wanted to know the answer to that question. So some people being like, oh darling, it's the IQ theory, it's a very alive theory that black and browns are simply not as smart as white people. Others saying, oh, it's just because you guys, it's all of these wars, and it's sure that wars are a good thing, but I also know that it didn't make sense. And so all of this nonsense made no sense, because I'm also like, if it's any of that, how come my parents, the same people, the minute they leave this place, then something different happens for them? They get to self-actualize. So I'm starting to think it's not about the person, because the only difference in this equation is the place in which this person is or not. And so I'm starting to pay attention to the place. And one thing, so while all of it's happening in my mind, all of these questions are happening, I'm growing up, we're moving from now Germany to France, and I'm going through business school. End of business school, I could go pretty much anywhere I wanted in the world, and I came to the US because I grew up with these movies telling me about the American dream. America is this place where you can become anything, right? Because in France, I was seeing that it's a very top-down, hierarchical society, and I was just like, I don't want to play this game of just, always, trying to climb this ladder, but not on things that look very meritocratic, and especially knowing that being who I am, looking like I am, being from the immigration, black women from Africa, I knew that there was always going to be a ceiling for me. Things have changed a little bit in France nowadays, not tremendously, but back then especially, I knew that I would have to settle for whatever the ceiling was, because you're in society that just won't go for anything else. So in any case, I moved to the US, and then here, quickly I found myself in Silicon Valley in the middle of the dot-com boom, and just looking at this whole. And that's when I finally understood what entrepreneurship meant. This concept of creating something out of nothing. Two people coming together, three people, however many founders you have an idea. Literally in this place, people were devising up a plan, a business plan on the back of a napkin, and then they get up and then they go talk to the would-be investors, and they sell them on the idea. And then once it's done, then they go to see the lawyers who are going to set up, set up the company and also be advising them startup-wise, and then go to see. So you get to understand this whole ecosystem of the entrepreneur.
Now, you had been to business school already. You didn't see that there?
No. Business school, man, it was just like basically, I was like, this is ridiculous. Seriously, do I have to come here to learn this? So business school was basically, I remember these things where we had to do role plays with like a stupid, like fountain machine, like the fountain thing. So basically, okay, we're going to teach you how to sell a fountain machine, like the self-serving machine, like the
soda
Coke
fountain
thing.
machines.
Soda fountain machines. We're going to tell you how to sell that to a corporate, to the procurement manager at some company. And so, so first come, build rapport. Yeah, that's how you do it. Then, okay, ask them the question to see what matters to them. Stupid stuff. No, don't tell me. I know it's not stupid, but for someone like me, selling is innate. And so that's what we're learning. And some stuff about accounting, boring stuff, but no one was spending, now that I know better, we didn't spend time on even ideation. We were not being trained to be entrepreneurs. We were not being fostered to be entrepreneurs. We were being fostered to be managers. That's very different,
Very different.
Very different. So business schools were just that. And I found that through the years that it seems like that's pretty much what it is. But this idea of critical thinking, this idea of independent thinking, this idea of thinking outside of a box, this idea,
Which is critical for entrepreneurship.
Critical. Without that, you don't have it. An entrepreneur is by definition, for me, somebody who criticizes by creating. But if you don't have the ability to even criticize or be like, there's something wrong with this and we need to do something about it, then you can't be an entrepreneur, because that action of it sucks and I'm going to do something That right there is the entrepreneur.
So let's dig into the first business that you started as an entrepreneur, when you saw something sucked and you're going to do something about it.
So no, it was a typical example. So I, after being in the West, after when I first finally managed to make it to the U.S., so I moved to the U.S. from France, and then after a few years in the headhunting world in finance, I decided. I mean, I just got the bug from Silicon Valley. I was working for companies like Google, like Netflix before it was household name brands. But I was there early on. I was there, like, Google didn't even have a full building yet, full of people yet. Netflix was this tiny ass office in South San Jose that I would get lost going to multiple times and being late at my meetings. But what I was seeing there was basically that, and all over the valley you feel this energy. And so eventually I got the bug, and I was doing really well for myself. At some point I had a crisis of existence, meaning that it was becoming very hard for me to reconcile the life of abundance that I was afforded with a life of scarcity that I had left back home. And so when I first made it to America, because of visa, having to wait for things to, the visa to come out and all of that, so it's been 4 years, the first time in my life that I haven't gone home in so long. Usually I go home every year, but this was the first time I haven't gone home for so long. So I went home as soon as my visa came out and I could go back and forth, and with my husband back then, who was French, and Emmanuel remembering, like, he's been like, where's this hibiscus you've been telling me about? Like, been talking about this thing the whole time, and telling me about all the cool recipes around it and all of that stuff. Of course I would make him some at home, but he wanted to taste all the other ways that other people were making it. It's the juice of Turanga. So I arrived home to realize that everybody, the hibiscus drink, that's what we're talking about, is the juice of Turanga. Turanga means hospitality. That is what people of Senegal are known for around the world. And this juice personifies it. So when you go to a home, everywhere you go where you're supposed to be welcome, that juice is supposed to be there. But now our family members are greeting us. Our friends are greeting us. We go to the home, they come, and they're greeting us with this. They bring a tray, and they're so proud. But on the tray, I see Fanta, I see Pepsi, I see those things. And I'm like, what about the hibiscus? And it's almost like, what is your deal? I mean, so basically what it is if you're anybody, or if you've made it, you drink these soda pop brands from the Western world. Our indigenous drinks, they're not good enough. So you show your status, and you show also, therefore, your appreciation for your guest by serving them those Western soda pop brands. But what that means is two things, three things. On one end, my culture, because it's part of my cultural identity, is going out of a window. Because no one is drinking this stuff anymore. And if no one is drinking this stuff anymore, it means the women, because it's primarily them who used to grow hibiscus to make, which is the main ingredient of this beverage. So now that no one is drinking the stuff anymore, why do we need to buy this ingredient from them? So they're leaving the countryside where they usually reside and move to the city in search of better lives, making money, and so end up being maids many times, but maids treated like crap in these homes, paid nothing oftentimes, or some people going the street. Who knows? But poverty goes even deeper, because there's one thing to be poor in your own community, where you have a support network. It's another thing to be the same poor, but in a place where city type, where everybody's fending for themselves, and you feel it worse.
It's very different.
Very different. So it's still not good, but it's very different. And so that was number two. So one, culture going out of a window. Two, these women losing their jobs, and it was just and by ricochet, what I mean by ricochet, you also have their older children who now also are trying to catch boats to go abroad, because they're looking for ways to help mom, who, they're looking for ways to supplement all of this loss of income. So you have these big three problems, and it's all due to, in this case, this drink disappearing. And so I'm like, criticized by creating. At first, I was ill to my stomach. For 3 days, I could not function. I was down, laying down. I could not sit up. I could not talk. I could not eat. Nothing. I was in despair. I was so pissed at all of this. And I was just like, where do we go from here? And eventually my husband said, Magatte, this anger of yours, it's energy, but it's a negative energy. You got to find a way to turn it around when it becomes positive. So turn it into inspiration, because inspiration is positive energy. And somehow I found a way to do it, especially going back to my teachings of criticize by creating. You got a problem with this, you find a solution. And so that's in a way how the company was born. And so I started this, my vendor plan was, okay, I got a problem with this beverage. I identified that the beverage disappearing is causing all of these problems. I'm going to bring it back. And that's how it was born. So again, entrepreneurship, it was about something doesn't sit well with me, that's what I'm going to do. And that's in a way the path that my other businesses took. I'm always starting, whenever I'm starting something, I'm starting it as a response to a problem that doesn't sit well with me. You see? And so that's why this concept of entrepreneurs solving world problems, that's what to me entrepreneurs are. Because if you're just gonna start something for the sake of, copying and doing and adding absolutely nothing new to the you usually won't go far, right? If you're gonna make it, it means like you're gonna have to bring up one element of innovation, whether it's cheaper price, somehow you found a way to make it cheaper, or make it better, or different bells and whistles, or completely destroy an old industry because now there's got to be a new way to do it. Whichever it is, it's got to be something that's taking us forward. Otherwise, people are not just going to leave what they already have. Why leave what I already have just to go on something just the same? It's a hassle, right? It's a hassle to just go from A to A. But if you have A plus, or I'm going from A to B, or I'm going from A plus to A plus plus, that iteration is in a way how innovation is happening. It's innovation itself. You have to always take us forward.
And to come up with a solution to it, because so many people see problems or they criticize things in the world, but they don't know what to do next, or they wish a magic wand would just change everything. But what you're talking about, what you just said that I really love, is criticize by creating. The entrepreneurial solution is to actually go out and figure out a solution to the problem. And it's not going to solve everything right away. You build up, but you actually figure out a sustainable solution.
Yeah, absolutely. And even I would go even further in, it might not solve it right away. Sometimes it might not even solve it. But you see, my father said, but still, it's the process. It's part of that is part of the process. The reason why my father would always say, criticize by creating. I want to know, don't come to me with your problems only. I want to know that you're thinking about solutions. And he would say, they don't have to be right. But then he explained, one day I understood what he meant by all of that. Come with solutions. We don't have to be right. But then I'm like, then who cares? No, what matters is when you're in solutions mode, you're a very different person. You see, when you're in a solutions mode,
energy.
It's a different energy. You reclaim your agency. You look at the world in a very different manner. And even if you're not finding the solutions, you're looking, and it's going to be bound to come. The solution will. So it's almost like a completely different chemical almost makeup of you. At all level, you're a different person. You're going to be chemically different because different chemicals in your body and your brain get engaged. You're going to be spiritually different, and you're going to be, everything about you is different. You're the same person, but completely different. And from that space comes some answer. And it may be 1% of the answer, maybe 90% of the answer, maybe the part of the answer at this time, and then later on someone else picks up from where you built. And that's how we move.
And it's just a different way of being in life. It's a more positive, more optimistic way of being. I often hear from people, and it seems to be the case, that entrepreneurs are more optimistic. They're more positive people in the world. Even though they're seeing the same problems that other people are, they're not being bogged down by it because they think, I'm going to figure out a solution to this, or I'm going to help other people who are going to figure out a solution.
Remember the agency I talked about earlier? Mm-hmm. And I think that's what my father was alluding to. It's like, you are in charge. And it's powerful to be in charge. When you're in charge, there's no space for feeling sorry for yourself. When you're in charge, there's no space for even feling pessimistic because you're in charge. You don't
mean in charge of other people. You just mean in charge of yourself.
You're in charge of yourself.
Yeah.
You're in charge of yourself, and you're in charge of how you're going to answer to this problem. It's such a place of, I'm telling you, for me, it's an antidepressant place. when we all
Completely
have these
agree.
tendencies sometimes to feel bogged down or whatever, but the minute you like switch on the solutions thing in your mind, the flip, all of a sudden I see it, Alexander, myself, I see it. I have these days where I wake up in the morning and I'm like, why am I doing this? And they all lied to me. Who was I to think that I could change this? You know what I mean? This thing is doomed, and this thing in this case, like Africa, sometimes I'm like, Africa is doomed. It's nothing to do. We're not going nowhere. And I sacrificed my life to this thing. Why? But then I'm like, and have you replied to so-and-so's email that could possibly advance this and that? No. Okay, so it starts right there. You what can you act on right now? It's up to you. Forget these big things. Up to you, but it's a tiny pebble that you have to throw out there. And then from there, you know the next thing I do? I wake up, I'm like that, I'm like, okay, today it's gonna be one of those days, I'm just gonna be like under my covers, don't even talk to me, I'm gonna disappear, I'm gonna flake on everybody. But then I'm just like, oh, and then I get up and I go get my shower, and before you know it, my mood completely changed. So I'm not saying this to undermine people who have depressions of all kinds, but what I'm saying is, in my case, I have found myself to be in moods that were not so, and just switching myself to solutions mode, and I call it entrepreneurial mindset. To the entrepreneurial mindset, totally took care of it for the time being. Until next time.
So I love that. And you've started a number of businesses now. I'm curious, what else have you learned from your experience starting so many businesses that's helped you be so successful with them?
Yeah, so I think for me, what I've learned, the biggest thing that I've learned is, in the end, business is people. It's what I have found is everything happens with people. I knew about it before, because I knew about it before, but when you're engaged in trying to in doing business, you realize that everything happens through people. Whether it's your investors, whether it's first of all, it's people, it's relationships, right? I think so many people are very transactional. It's like, I need this, you have this, and I'm not saying that there is no room for that. There is room for that for sure. But for me, what has always helped me the most, everywhere where I have seen myself advance, is thanks to relationships. And sometimes it's a relationship that maybe I built 5 years ago. And the whole time it was just me saying hi and catching up. What are you doing? What am I doing? Helping where I can, help where I can. And then all of a sudden, boom, it's happening. So I think what I've learned is people, right? And when it comes to people, it's always showing up with how can I help someone. I'll give you an example. Just recently, there's this movie that came out, you guys can scratch that one, because it's I don't think I can talk about that example, but it was a beautiful example. But anyway, so my point is people. So make your connection with people. And then the other thing is, but I'm not seeing a lot being taught, especially sales, but the true art of sales. And for me, I think the young generation especially abhors the idea of sales. You see how young people love marketing, they love stuff like, social, they like stuff like that. But so oftentimes when you say sales, people are like having a hard time with sales. And I know why. It's because we're not making it look, like oftentimes sales feels too transactional.
They feel like it's the used car salesman is the stereotype.
Thank you. And I can't blame people for thinking that way. But so for me, the way I look at sales though is, when you're trying every single moment of our life, whenever we're interacting with other people, because we go back to people, who are you convincing? Who are you talking to when you're selling your product? Or when you're buying supplies from someone? It's people talking to people. Last time I checked, I'm not talking to a robot. So it's always people to people. So, but every minute of our life, even like at lunch, let's say, I want to go to lunch. Even that, a simple act. Alexander, do you want to go to lunch? Do you know what I'm doing right there? Do you want to go to lunch?
You're making a pitch to me.
There you go. And then where do we want to go for lunch? Here, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
All the way to, hey, Alexander, I have this project, and we're looking for investors. All the time, we are pitching to each other.
And the whole point of sales isn't to extract value, which most people think about. It's actually about giving value, creating value that didn't exist for them before. And most people get that wrong about sales.
Thank you. It's a win-win-win. Exactly. And so I like to say sometimes, like, I'm trying to, for me, it's about inspiring the other person, and that keyword, inspiring them, to inspiring them. So those are my thing. It's sales, and it's people, and also it's humility. I've been beaten many, many times. For this last one, I'm being beaten up and down the street in terms of having to go back to a drawing board, oftentimes. I think for someone like me, something that I'm
This
learning...
last one, do you mean your current company?
The current one, yeah.
Skin is Skin?
Yeah, Skin is Skin. So
are you willing to share anything about that with us?
Yeah, I mean, so when we first started it, you remember when you said the lip balm on a mission to fight discrimination?
Yeah.
Right there. When I first, that was the first branding. When I did it, see me, I tend to start my businesses from that place of like, really, I'm trying to bring an answer. And this is the other thing about entrepreneurship. It's I think one of the best forms of personal growth. You get kicked in the ribs, in the belly, day in and day out, and you have to keep standing up because otherwise the whole thing dies. And so, in this case, when we first started it, I started it because I was back then, all about what the rest of the world would discover 4 years later. In 2016, when you had all the killings of the black people, Philando Castile, Eric Garner, people like that, that's when I had my George Floyd moment. 4 years before the world had their George Floyd moment. Whatever you think of George Floyd, what happened. It was terrible that it happened, and I would like to think we can all agree on that.
Absolutely.
Right? So the thing is I started, then it sent me on a tailspin of trying to understand really what bias and discrimination is all about. What is it beyond the headlines? What is the phenomenon behind it? And it got me into this whole world, behavioral scientist, brain scientist, evolutionary biologist, and eventually, as I put all of this together, I'm starting to understand that there is the science of bias. If you've got a brain, you've got biases, and so on and so forth. So I won't walk into all of that stuff. But anyway, so that was the rabbit hole that I got myself into. And then from there, I created a product that I honestly felt like was needed for addressing that. My whole thing was, if unconscious bias is a habit, that's what I learned from my studies and everything, then we got to find a way to break the habit. Brain scientists say this is how you break a habit. These are the 5 steps. And it seemed like it was important to not only have this practice to be created to undo the habit of bias using brain stuff, but at the same time, it seems like for any habit you want to break, you need a powerful reminder to not engage with the habit. If you're biting your nails, absolutely, it's a good idea to have like bitter nail polish, because when you go to bite, but the fact that it's bitter sends a signal to your brain that says, "Hey, stop! You're not supposed to do this. You remember you said you have this habit and you don't want to do it." So in our case, I came up with a lip balm for various reasons. So you see, the lip balm was actually an active piece of this process.
So it wasn't just branding; it was the product itself.
No, it was a product itself. It was an active piece of this practice that I wanted to get you on a journey on, so you can be better off on the other end. So as soon as we finished it, and I went down this tail, I was so, because, and when I say personal growth,
I remember when you were starting this, how excited you were about that.
Yeah, I was super excited. And then I called a friend of mine a month after we launched. I should have called him before I went to the drawing board. And the first thing he said to me was, "Magatte, I respect and value what you're trying to do, but you're basically telling people that they're part of a problem. And no one wants to hear they're part of a problem, however true it is. And so this is just a big no-no. You gotta have to rethink this. There's not just one way to do. I understand what you're trying to do, but there's gotta be another way for you to do it." And I just went stubborn. And so, Alexander, I'm telling you, this brand is what taught me that in the end, I am a preacher. And preaching does not go well with marketing. So this was
Those are
heartbreaking.
very different things.
It was heartbreaking. So when you were asking me about entrepreneurship, what is it all about? For me, it's like there's the things you learn, but most importantly, it will humble you. I have been humbled. I could have done, if I had been humble earlier, I would have heard what this gentleman said. But I did not. I had to stay there and be beaten up 3 more years, waste money and resources, 3 more years, before being like, okay, now it hurts enough, but I'm gonna go, and now I'm really gonna try to be less about what Magatte thinks the world needs, even though it might be true, and more about, can you meet the world where the world is, and start from there. And that's the exercise we did recently. And so, but it has helped me in so many ways, because what happened, I think, with that is even I can sense my own mind becoming more plastic. I kid you not, through that process, I realized how rigid my own brain was. I realized that and my own husband said, even him, he saw the change in me. He said, because he would also sometimes try to tell me, you've got to be a little bit more flexible. And I was just not being flexible. And so my first couple companies, fine, worked out. And I guess maybe lucky, I don't know. I'm sure we did some things right. But if I continue this, if I want really to go to higher heights and do things better, it was very important for me to now realize I'm a preacher. Does it mean I'm going to change myself? No, because I don't think I can change myself on that side.
Nor should you. You have to be authentic, especially
I have to be
in
authentic,
business.
exactly. So therefore, it means we have to come up with something that then I can serve the purpose of a business better, being who I am. And so we kind of we did everything with that in mind, and that changed everything. And so now we're on this better journey where, we're still climbing. We're starting to climbing. You know how it is. You climb and then try to when you the plane. You're still on the tarmac. And it's like this, and then you catch speed, and then hopefully you get in the air, and then hopefully you get to a safe, to the cruise altitude, and then sometimes you'll have some more, whatever. But we're on the tarmac and being like that. So, to me, what I learned is it's important to be humble. And I learned it the hard way. I'm shocked and surprised that I'm learning that only now. So people, the respect for sales, an understanding maybe, and humility. 'Cause I think when you're humble, that's a whole nother thing. When you're humble, and being humble doesn't mean you're not ambitious. You see, that's the thing. I think most people might be confused by that. I'm not saying be less ambitious. I think you have to see as big as you're capable of. But you also have to be humble in knowing that it's going to take more than you, and that even you, it's going to require you to be willing to continually grow.
I think that is a fantastic place for us to end with one question still to wrap this up, though. You talked before about how you've had business relationships come from things that you started years beforehand, and it started just by offering to help people out. And that is critical in business. It's not always about expecting something immediately in return. It's just helping people create new value in the world.
Right.
And one of the things I always advise people to do when they say they want to enter an industry, they want to work with someone, or they're just looking to grow what they do, is to offer to help other people out. And I'm curious, if someone were to reach out to you and say, I want to help you do X, Magatte, I really respect what you're doing, I want to help your companies, or I want to learn from you, what is the thing that they could offer to help you with that you would be positively responsive to, that you would say, that's interesting, I want to talk to you?
Yes, I'm interested in, if people, I think when it comes to marketing especially, there's always need for that, because at the end of, again, marketing is part of this bigger toolkit, sales, marketing, promotion, they all go together. And every day we're trying to inspire others to see our vision and to join our vision, whatever it is. So there definitely help. I'm always looking, in my particular case right now, I'm looking for people to help me mentor people back home in Africa. We're looking for folks who are interested in mentoring like it can be any industry. We have this. Africa is the youngest continent in the world. The average age is 19 years old, 19, which is it's a wonderful opportunity, right? If we all embrace it properly and show up for the journey. So I'm looking for people who really buy into a prosperous Africa, people who buy into the idea that Africa can be prosperous. And so from that standpoint, there are multiple ways for them to engage and say, hey, I heard you and I want to help, and I'm there to support, because that's my focus. My focus is African prosperity. And so for that, you show up, you're like, hey, I want to buy African products made in Africa by Africans. You're helping. I wanna invest in African companies that are doing cool stuff, especially doing it in an ethical manner. Like conscious type of businesses, principled businesses. I'm looking for people like that. So in people who want to invest in those companies, and people who want to train and mentor folks, and also people who are like, hey, I have maybe, I don't know, this distribution company or this retail, chain, and this sounds very interesting. Do you know of any products that can be sourced out of Africa right now? My big thing is create as many jobs as possible back home. Because with jobs come the income, and with that income, people can take care of their own needs with dignity. No one wants to be a weight on society. Everybody wants to contribute.
Absolutely.
And the work is powerful. It's so important, and so that's what we're missing. So, in my case, anything that can support African entrepreneurs, I am a taker. Anybody also who is even willing to amplify this message that Africa needs more entrepreneurship and not so much aid, because that's the narrative also we have to change. So those are different ways you can help. So anywhere from, hey, where can I buy that lip balm, because I know you're making it in Africa, Skin lip balms, to and we're interested in investing in similar companies back on the continent, and or all the way from here, mentoring people, entrepreneurs on the other side. It will help.
Those are so many great options for people. Magatte, thank you for sharing all of these insights and for everything that you're doing. It's just been an absolute pleasure to call you a friend and to get to work with you.
Likewise. Thank you so much, Alexander.
Thank you, Magatte.
Thank you.